Hi, I'm Femi OK and you're in the stream. Today, Syrian refugees, millions of them, have fled the war to other countries around the world. We'll discuss the challenges of those refugees who are trying to move on. If we went back 5 years ago, I think there'd be so many Syrians who would be shocked to find themselves outside of their home country. We're going to be tapping into some of those stories of refugees. Malika Bilal is off today. Omar Bada is here monitoring what's going on online. What have you got for us?
So, the big question for today's conversation is, has the international community done enough to help Syrian refugees? And we asked this question on multiple platforms. It's out online. And we also asked it on our Stream app, which folks can download at the strap that you see at the bottom of the screen. You can answer many questions there besides that one to join today's conversation. And we have people joining this conversation online. You have Lamine here on Facebook who says, the international community has betrayed Syrian refugees. I believe they should be welcomed with open arms everywhere they go. For those of you at home, you can join this conversation right now by tweeting using the hashtag AJStream, and I'll try to get to those tweets during the show.
He's joining our conversation here in the studio. Kusai Zakaria is with us right now. He's a Syrian activist who's seeking asylum in the United States. Kusai, great to have you here.
It's always nice to be here.
And we'll be looking forward to hearing what you have to say in the conversation in just a moment. Let me just give our audience a little bit of background first, though. As the war in Syria enters its 5th year, humanitarian agencies are expecting many more Syrians to flee from the conflict. Now, since 2011, about 10 million have been displaced, and within that figure, almost 4 million have sought refuge in countries including Turkey, Lebanon, and Jordan. The majority live in urban areas with little opportunities for work. On Thursday, the United Nations Refugee Agency warned that there's no solution in sight to the conflict in Syria, and living conditions for refugees in neighbouring countries are expected to deteriorate. Now, after surviving war, what new challenges are Syrian refugees having to face abroad? With us to talk about this, we have, in Ankara, Turkey, Celine Ünal. She's a spokesperson for the United Nations Refugee Agency, or UNHCR. In Stockholm, we're joined by Ashur. He's a refugee who's resettled in Sweden, and we're using a different name for him to protect his family back in Syria. And in Zaatari refugee camp in Jordan, Sami Al-Dous is a refugee who's been living at the camp for about 2 years. So it's good to have you all here, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us. Sami, welcome back. When we do a Syrian program, we often have Sami here in the mix as well. I want to just remind you of the last time we had Sami on the program, and this was back in December of 2014, and he told us this about the prospect of going back home. Have a listen.
First came, I thought that I'm gonna be back to Syria in 3 or 4 months at the most. And I was just eating every day, drinking every day, just for the day I would get back. But now I'm looking for the day to leave from here and start a new life. I'm not thinking about Syria anymore because it's, I don't know, it's complicated.
So Sami, you're sitting, are you almost in the exact same spot you were sitting back there in December? What's new for you? Are you going somewhere? Are you getting out of the refugee camp in Jordan? Might be a little bit challenging getting our connection there to the Zaatari refugee camp. All right, we'll come back to Sami and we'll reconnect with him. And then in the meantime, let me go to Ashur. Ashur, for you, when you got out of Syria, how did you do it?
First I get out of Syria. It was easy because it was my choice. It was in November 2012. I get out of Syria to go to Egypt and complete my study in the university there.
Right.
But because of I went to Egypt because the situation in Aleppo was. A student in the Aleppo University, so because of the situation there, I moved to Egypt. But then, after 9 months in Egypt, even in Egypt, the situation became more harder for us and both. So this is how we get to move out of the Middle East.
Kusai, that point where you have to make the decision, you're leaving Syria. How hard is that?
You have no idea. I was living under siege for practically 2 years near Damascus in a town called Muaddamiyah. We were participated in the revolution since the beginning. The regime used all different kinds of weapons on us, including sarin gas, which I was personally exposed to in August 21st, 2013, leaving me with doctors to think that I was dead. I was placed among dead bodies for practically an hour. After that, we had to struggle just to find anything to eat. People were eating grass.
So you stayed even after that?
Yes. There was no way out. The regime was always using a tactic called kneel or starve. That tactic is based on putting the rebel towns under siege, shutting off all basic supplies of life, bombing these areas with everything they got, and then wait for people to surrender. Personally, I was working as an activist and spokesperson for people of Muaddamiyya, and because of my English skills, I was really giving the regime a hard time, always talking to international media, on which led the regime to personally target me.
So the tipping point for you was what?
The tipping point for me to leave was after we were forced to sign up a false ceasefire with the regime. And the regime had some kind of access to Muaddamiyya, and I was getting death threats all the time. They were targeting my family, my friends. They wanted me to go out to Damascus and meet with the chief of staff of the 4th Brigade,
I'll fast forward this because the story could take a whole book, and we don't have a whole book right here. So the tipping point was what?
My tipping point.
You felt, okay, I now have to leave because what?
I'm not safe. My biggest fear was to get captured. I'm not afraid to die.
Right.
But I was afraid to get captured and forgotten about. So I went out after I talked to the media. I made a big story about going out just to make sure that I'm not going to get killed. And
did you know how to leave Syria?
Believe me, it took a miracle to get me out.
Right.
Practically a miracle to get me out. I was captured by Assad's most brutal and vicious forces, and I was one of their main targets for years. But somehow, it will take a lot of time to explain it, I managed to go out, went to Lebanon, and from Lebanon I got another miracle happening, and I got visa to the United States to come here and talk to congressmen and politicians and giving a first-hand account about Syria.
Take a breath. I hear Sammy piping up. Sammy, go ahead.
The same miracle is happening to me now. I'm resettling in Canada.
Yeah, we kept our audience on tenterhooks. I was like, Sammy, give us an update from the last time you were on the show. Then we had to reconnect with you via Skype. Since December, when you said you were ready to be somewhere else and start a new life, what's happened?
That's right. An opportunity jumped, in the air, and I got to apply to one program to have this resettlement in Canada, and I'm working on it. And soon, like in June, I'm going to be in Canada. It's my situation is still the same. I'm still working with Mercy Corps. I'm still living in the same place. But yeah.
Sammy, I want to do a little happy dance for you. Is it too soon to do that? Are you definitely going to be in Canada in June?
Right,
you want me to do a happy dance?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Here's your. But you start first, and I'll do one. I'll join you. You ready? This is my happy dance for you, okay? But you are one of just so many trying to get out. How did you do it?
I was lucky. There was this release of applications. They announced it just between the organizations and the camp that there's going to be a resettlement in Canada, and you have to go through some tests with the embassy and with the program.
Yeah.
And I passed. Yeah,
wow.
I passed.
Wow. Congratulations. All right.
Thank you so much.
Omar.
So we have people who actually are talking about how difficult it must be for people leaving Syria. US Patriot here says, all I know is that they are suffering a lot. I was an immigrant and I took a plane, and that was hard. And for them it must be harder because they have to walk. Sammy, just for people who are not familiar with your full story, you actually had to leave the country on foot as well.
That's right. I took a 3 hours walk from Daraa to the borders of Jordan. That's true.
It took me also 2 hours to walk from Syria to Lebanon. I had to snuggle myself in through the borders as well, and it was really hard and dangerous. People have no idea how hard it is to do such a thing. You only hear about it, but when you're living it, it's a whole different story.
How do you know even where to go? I know we've all got great phones these days. Did you use your phone? It's just like my phone is not going to tell me how to get across the border to another country.
I had a lousy phone.
How did you do it?
Just kept looking at car lights and see where the cars are going, and kept following them through the woods.
Right.
Because if I'm going to get captured, that means I'm dead. And I wasn't in a position to give up at that moment, and not in any moment, inshallah. Let
me just bring in Celine. She's from the UNHCR, who's helping a lot of these Syrian refugees. Celine, these are remarkable stories. I'm trying to think, is there an easier way to be resettled? what's the process like?
Yeah. Thank you. It's just really we need to highlight that resettlement is not a right, unfortunately. There are many millions of refugees globally, and less than 100,000 of them yearly basis are resettled in the world. It's a global figure that I just gave you. So
yeah, what do people do? I mean, Sami's and Ashur's and Kusai's stories, they're also remarkable. Is there not a route where they go, if I go to UNHCR, this is what I have to do?
Well, you need to be registered in the countries where you seek asylum, international protection. For instance, if I may give you an example, in Turkey, when a Syrian refugee comes into Turkey and looking for international protection, they have to register themselves to the authorities inside Turkey, Turkish authorities.
Right.
And also to UNHCR as well. I mean, Turkey's situation is a little bit different because Turkey manages this situation doing the registration, but in other countries, UNHCR does this as well. So what needs to be done as a first step is you have to register yourself with authorities as well as with the UNHCR. Then UNHCR goes through its procedures under our mandate. We look for criteria if they are fitting into resettlement, and then they are submitted to states. However, this also needs to be underlined that we do identify refugees in need of resettlement.
How long does this take? How long does this take, Celine?
It's different, and it is really difficult to answer you. It takes like 15 months or so. It's a long process. It can be a long process as well. Okay. But states are offering spaces for resettlement of the refugees. However, we do identify the cases through their vulnerabilities.
Right.
And
I have a question for Celine, if possible.
Celine, take a breath for a moment, because Kusai wanted to ask you something. Kusai?
I always keep asking this question to the United Nations and UNHCR and all different international organizations. For example, I come from Palestinian origins, so that practically doesn't give me the right to apply to UNHCR seeking protection. We have in Syria over 400,000 Palestinian refugees, who most of them had to flee the country, and we all know about what's going on in the Yarmouk camp, for example, and other places. So for me, for my family, I was practically, when I was talking about miracle, I had a miracle just to be able to get a visa or to get a to have a resettlement anywhere.
So, Kusai, your question is, what happens
to the Palestinian Syrian refugees? They don't have any rights to apply to UNHCR.
Okay.
The UNRWA doesn't.
Let's let Celine answer.
Yeah.
Celine, what happens in situations like that?
Thank you for thanks for that question. Well, for instance, with regard to Turkey case, again, I can speak in Turkey as well, of course, in general for UNHCR procedures too. Any Syrian or Palestinian coming from Syria and seeking international protection inside Turkey are given temporary protection. And once they are protected inside country, once they are registered, we are having, together with the authorities, with regard to their vulnerabilities and needs, whether they are, they're under the criteria for resettlement, and then they are submitted for resettlement countries. And this is for sure, this procedure, as I just mentioned to you, may take some time, but it is also is a fact that the spaces made available so far is not enough, given the needs and given the numbers of Syrian refugees who are in need of resettlement.
All right, Celine, take another breath as well, because the community is really keen to jump into this conversation.
We have a lot of people who are asking questions about resettlement in Europe in particular. We have Giorgio here who's tweeting from Rome and says, "We are proud to receive as many refugees as possible. It is sad how they have to travel to reach the North Mediterranean countries." And then we have a follow-up video comment here from Charlie. Take a listen to this.
"I believe Europe needs to shoulder more of the responsibility for the Syrian refugee crisis. There are now more than 3.8 million Syrian refugees, and the vast majority of those are being hosted in neighbouring countries. Countries like Jordan and Lebanon are finding their infrastructures and services stretch to their very limits. It's time Europe offered more legal alternative paths to accessing the European asylum system."
Ashur, you made that trip to Europe. Is there something that you would like to see change in the process of how refugees can actually get there?
And you might
sorry, I didn't get your question.
For you.
It was for Ashur. Go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't get your question.
Yeah, you've made the journey to Europe. Is there something that you would like to see change policy-wise that would make it easier for Syrian refugees to make the trip all the way to Europe?
Yes, there is a lot of stuff that they can do for the refugees in the Middle East, like in Jordan or in Egypt or Turkey. One of the situations, one of the solutions is first for example, I have a lot of friends in Egypt now who are studying. They should, they are forced to move from Egypt and choose smuggling because they have no support to stay in Egypt and study and complete their university. So one of the things that they can do is to focus on the refugees in the Middle East, Egypt, Jordan, and other places. And another thing, like me, I choose this hard way to get out of Egypt because I didn't have no other choice. Either to go back to war or and to leave with no hope because I get out of Syria just for, I thought it's like he said, Sammy said, for months, but it became a long way. It became a way to search a new hope, a new future for us,
sure.
especially for young people.
Actually, Sammy also piped up about a thought about how other countries can help Syrian refugees. Sammy, what are you thinking?
Yeah.
Sammy.
Yeah.
Sammy, okay.
Well, about the Middle East, I don't know, I guess people seek the opportunity to go to Europe, for example, just to resettle because the Middle East doesn't afford to give you like a real resettlement. You're not going to have the chance to study, you're not going to have the chance to work. You're not going to get the whole package, you're not going to get the full right.
Yeah.
That's why we get, what we need, you know, you need to get to pick if you want to go there and there and there. We need more chances for people to resettle. It's a great idea.
Can I jump in quickly on that?
Go ahead, yeah.
I lost a lot of friends who were trying to flee and head to Europe. Most of them, or practically all of them.
How did you lose them? Are you telling me that they're dead?
Yes.
What happened?
They died in the sea.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Some of them were in Egypt, like Ashur. Some of them went to Libya. And this is really common. We call it the death boats. Yeah. 200, 300 people jump in a small boat, which was made just for 50 people to be in it. They get drowned in the sea. Sometimes smugglers, they leave them out in the sea and they run for their lives. What I can ask the UNHCR, the international community, or the United States is to push other countries like Italy and other European countries to have more observation on the international water, just to make sure that when this unfortunate incident happens, there will be somebody to help. Sure. It's really shameful to see people drowning in 2015 while we have satellites, we have a lot of technology to help us save lives. I really hope to see this technology working to save lives.
I want to show all of our guests something. This is from a documentary called Life on Hold. It's going online on Al Jazeera on March the 15th, which is the anniversary of the Syrian uprising. These are Syrian refugees who are currently living in Lebanon. I want you to experience how they are living. Have a look at this.
اللي نصه مات ونصه معتقل ونصه اشتعل رفقاتي اللي راحوا واللي تشردوا واللي ما عاد عرفت عنهم شيء.
نشحاد؟ شحادين صفينا نحن كنا طعم الناس صفينا شحادين.
بأي مكان في العالم فما بالك بوطن عربي، وللأسف نحن عرب.
واقع مؤثر جدا لما تشوف أطفالك بعيدين عن مدرستهم، تربيتهم بدأت تنحرف إلى غير الاتجاه اللي كنت أنت كوالد راسمه لهم. أتأثر جدا بهذا الشيء، لأنه مو هذا البيئة اللي كنت أحلم إني أربي فيها أولادي.
Celine, it's hard to watch these people's lives literally disintegrate in front of your very eyes in this documentary. What is it that the international community could be doing as we look at this anniversary coming up on March the 15th that will help so many Syrian refugees who are still looking for somewhere to call home? What is it that still needs to be done?
Yeah, we as UNHCR and all UN agencies since the beginning of this crisis raising our voice and telling that this is the responsibility of the international community. And currently, as you know, majority of those Syrian refugees are being hosted in the neighboring countries. It's coming to 4 million, 3.9 million refugees are registered inside those countries. And Turkey is as the one hosting the largest number.
Sure, Celine, we have a little bit of time left. I don't want to miss this opportunity. What do you need?
We need more support. Not that we need. Of course, we need more support to be able to help more Syrians, to be able to help the host governments and host countries, because we ended the fourth year.
Yeah.
And
what does that support look like? You know, you say support. People may be watching this at this very minute now. What are we talking about?
Yeah. It can be a funding support. We have those plans, RRP plan that we finished now this year, starting with 2015. There are 3 RRP plans, which means Refugee and Resilience Response Plan. Countries can donate to that with and
the countries and the people who are listening, they know exactly what you're talking about because you are negotiating with them all of the time. All right, behind the scenes, let me go back to Celine, hold tight for a moment. Let me just go back to the community.
Yeah, people in community have their own thoughts about what Syrian refugees also need. You have things like protection, food, water, medicine, adequate shelter, pretty much everything it seems. But to switch topics a little bit, just on a more emotional note, we have Shahroz here who tweeted in saying he would like to know from the refugees here we have on the show, what part of their homelands do they miss the most and what memories? Sami, you're getting ready to create a whole new life somewhere else. What do you miss about Syria?
I miss my house, my home. I miss my room. I miss the times I used to spend with my friends in my room, playing cards or doing whatever. Walking the streets, going to Damascus for some party. I miss everything.
I can say that I miss everything, and that's the main reason that it's pushing me to seriously considering coming back to Syria. And it's going to be really hard and a very long trip.
If anybody's watching the beginning of the show, you told this appalling story of how you got out of Syria and how you were attacked and how you were in fear of your life, and you're thinking about going back because why?
Working on getting back.
Why?
First of all, I'm homesick all the time. Even when I'm asleep, all I dream or think about is my country. And when I came here hoping that I can get some help for people back there who are still living under fire, who are still living in refugee camps, freezing to death or starving to death. But after meeting all these politicians and doing all this speaking tours across the states, I came up with a simple conclusion telling me that there is nothing's going to be done to really help people on the ground. I feel like I've betrayed my friends and betrayed my country, and I need to go back and work hard to liberate our country. It's really hard for me to say that, but we have to settle with what we have. We've been asking for help since the beginning. It's great to have this talk. It's great to talk about refugees. We're talking about millions of people who are suffering because of 10 or 12 people maximum in Syria. Bashar al-Assad and the rest of the gang. That's it. Instead of resettling millions of people, why won't the international community resettle Bashar and his family and get this over with?
Kasai, Celine, Ashur and Sami, thank you so much for being part of this program. You gave us more insight into what's happening with Syrian refugees in and around the neighboring countries and around the world as well. If you'd like to hear more about the lives of Syrian refugees, I want you to check out Al Jazeera's web documentary, Life on Hold. It launches on March the 15th and you'll be able to see some of those remarkable stories there. Thank you so much for watching. Omar, a last comment from the community is what?
We have Thomas Roast here who tweeted in from Norway, basically saying that Norway can and should accept more Syrian refugees, and tweeted this image of himself with a sign that says, "Welcome Syria."
All right, great. We end on something positive. Thank you very much, everybody, for being part of this program. We will see you online. Take care.